Hey loves, I'm Emani C. If it's your first time, welcome. This is my podcast, AdornSpeaks, and this is a safe place where we heal and become our better selves together. Today's topic is the power of grace, and we're talking about transforming your life with kindness. Last week we talked about modesty. The goal for this year's podcast, we're going to talk about femininity and stepping into womanhood, but not just womanhood, but stepping into a new journey of walking, talking, and living like a Christian woman should. Now, I want to talk about the story of Ruth today. But before we even get into the story of Ruth, let's talk about grace. What is grace? Well, grace has to do with showing compassion and understanding someone despite their flaws and despite what they do. You're having grace towards them. I don't want to say empathy, but it kind of flows into being empathic. But it's like, grace is like being kind to someone even when they don't deserve it. And as a Christian girl, you know that the Lord passes grace to us. He grants us new grace every morning. But I want to talk about grace as it pertains to Ruth's story. Now, we all know the story of Ruth in the book of Ruth, where it talks about this woman. She was a Moabite and she got married to one of Naomi's sons. While they were married, Naomi's husband died and Ruth's husband died and Ruth's husband brother died. Because of the death of Naomi's sons and her husband, Naomi decided to go back to where she was from. And she sent away, Ruth. Well, she told Ruth and Oprah or Opal, I don't quite remember her name. She sent them back, telling them to go back to their mother and father's house. Opal, she went back, but Ruth, she decided to stay. She decided to stay with Naomi. My friend and I, we are doing this. We are currently reading the book of Ruth in Bible study, and this week we did chapter 2, and I want to share chapter 2 with you. I'm just going to read parts of it very briefly. Let's read all of chapter 2. Now Naomi had a relative on her husband's side. He was a prominent man of noble character from Elimelech's family. His name was Boaz. Ruth the Moabite asked Naomi, "Will you let me go into the fields and gather fallen grains behind someone with whom I find favor?" Naomi answered, "Go ahead, my daughter." So Ruth left and entered the field to gather grain behind the harvesters. She happened to be in the portion of the field belonging to Boaz, who was from Elimelech's family. Later, when Boaz arrived from Bethlehem, he said to the harvesters, "The Lord be with you. The Lord bless you," they replied. Boaz asked his servant who was in charge of the harvesters, "Whose young woman is this?" The servant answered, "She is the young Moabite woman who returned with Naomi from the territory of Moab." She asked, will you let me gather fallen grain among the bundles behind our harvesters? She came and has been on her feet since early morning, except that she rests a little in the shelter. Then Boaz said to Ruth, listen, my daughter, do go and gather grain. Don't go and gather grain in another field, and don't leave this one, but stay here close to my female servants. See which field they are harvesting and follow them. Haven't I ordered the young men not to touch you? When you are thirsty, go and drink from the jars the young men have filled. So she fell face down, bowed to the ground, and said to him, why have I found favor with you, so that you notice me, although I am a foreigner? Boaz answered her, everything you have done for your mother-in-law since your husband's death has been fully reported to me. How you left your father and mother and your native land, and how you came to a people you didn't previously know. May the Lord reward you for what you have done, and may you receive full reward from the Lord of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge. I'm going to stop right there. This is what I'm talking about, right? Ruth, through her act of kindness, her life was transformed. Because if you should go further down into the story, you will then find out that Boaz and Ruth, they got married and they had children together. Ruth did not have to show Naomi such kindness, because even in the beginning of chapter 1, Naomi was bitter. She even told them to call her a different name. When they called her Naomi, she said, don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, because she was bitter. Even when Ruth was tagging along with her, she was like, no, go back to your family. Go back to your family. She didn't even want Ruth there. But Ruth showed grace to her. She understood that what she was going through, and she had compassion. And in her extending grace to Naomi, someone else extended grace to her, right? The power of grace. You can transform your life with kindness. It's the same thing that happened to Ruth. She was kind towards Naomi, and Boaz was watching. Ruth didn't even know that Boaz was watching. And she received grace from Boaz because of the kindness and because of the grace that she gave to Naomi. I feel like it's very important for us to understand. Last week we were talking about modesty, and I was also saying that yes, modesty, you should dress modest, but I was also talking about speaking modest and how you deal with a situation. And modesty also flows into the fruit of the Spirit. And in Galatians 5 verse 22 to 23, it tells you what the fruits of the Spirit are: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And as a woman of God, and as women who intend to not only be women of God, but women who intend to be wives, it's important for us to flow in these fruits of the Spirit like Ruth did. This is how Ruth found her Boaz, by walking in the fruit of the Spirit. She was kind to Naomi. She loved Naomi. She even brought Naomi a sense of peace, because if you should think about it, Naomi was technically alone. Her husband died, her two sons died, she was alone. And Ruth accompanied her despite Naomi being upset and not wanting her to come with her. Ruth even was patient with Naomi, right? And she was even faithful to Naomi. Even her wanting to stay is an act of faithfulness to Naomi. Thank you guys. Oh, you make me get nervous, Kaya. Look at me. Yeah, that's what I really want to talk to you guys about this week. Transforming your life with kindness, the power of grace. Don't forget to share this with someone to spread the message of grace and kindness, and tell them about the story of Ruth and Naomi and all of that. Until next time, thank you, loves. Thank you for being in this safe place with me, where we heal and become our better selves together. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and to subscribe. And if you want to listen to the audio version of this, you can listen to it on all podcast platforms, on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, Radio Public, and you can follow the podcast on Instagram at AdornSpeaks. Until next time, bye. Been stressed for so long, so stuck in my own way. So I'ma enjoy this moment. It's the day that the Lord